I have a feeling my pen is going to go out on me. Maybe here's this one. Does she have the full 3 for electronic attendance? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It's 6:00 p.m. on Tuesday, January the 11th, 2022. Happy New Year. I'd like to call the meeting of the Peoria City Council to order. I'd also like to welcome everyone in our City Council chambers, as well as Brady Johnson and our listening audience at WCBU. I'd also like to welcome the audience watching via cable channel 22. Madam Clerk, the council mics are open. Please call the roll.
Mayor Ali,
Present.
Councilmember Allen,
Present.
Councilmember Graham,
Here.
Councilmember Jackson,
Here.
Councilmember Jensen, Councilmember Kelly,
Here.
Councilmember Euler, Councilmember Riggenbach,
Here.
and Councilmember Ruckriegel.
A notice was received by council members Sear and Valpula of the City Council in accordance with rules established in ordinance number 16,142. Council members Sear and Valpula would be deemed authorized to attend the meeting electronically unless a motion objecting to council member Sears and Valpula's electronic attendance is made, seconded, and approved by 2/3 of the members of the City Council physically present at the meeting. If no such motion is made and seconded, then the request by council members Sear and Valpula to attend electronically shall be deemed approved by the City Council, and the presiding officer shall declare council members Sear and Valpula present. Seeing no objection, can you please call their names, Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Sear,
Present.
Councilmember Valpula.
Present.
We have a quorum present, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Everyone, would you please join me and stand for a moment of silent prayer or silent reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk?
We are at proclamations.
We have, first of all, members of the American Legion Post 2 that would like to present a certificate of appreciation. We have Bill Davies, Al Burnett, and Gary E. Hall. Welcome, gentlemen.
Members of the Peoria City Council. My name is Bill Davies. I'm the Peoria Post 2 commander. Thank you for reminding me. Tonight we're going to be presenting a certificate of achievement. So we have a certificate of achievement. Sorry. This certificate of appreciation is gratefully presented to the city of Peoria, Illinois, for their cooperation in the 69th Peoria Veterans Day Parade ceremony. We are grateful to have your cooperation to show the public your support. We sincerely appreciate your outstanding volunteer service to our community, presented by the American Legion Peoria Post 2.
Are very grateful for this certificate of appreciation. We are very grateful for the service that you've given to America and to our community. And you look just fantastic in your decorated uniforms, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Happy to receive this on behalf of the Peoria City Council. Thank you. Next we have, thank you, Director. Next, we have a proclamation celebrating the 100th birthday of Eleanor Stewart. She is a veteran and retired teacher. Helping us to recognize her are also James Peacock and Deborah Peacock, the daughter of Mrs. Stewart. The proclamation reads, whereas it is a great honor and a privilege to acknowledge a very special resident on her 100th birthday, who was also a trailblazer, an educator, and a mother in our community. And whereas Eleanor Stewart was born on January 2nd, 1922, in Kungletown, Pennsylvania, she was one of 6 siblings born to John and Dorothy Henley. And whereas in 1944, she enlisted in the Women's Army Corps, WACS. After basic training in Oglethorpe, Georgia, she was assigned to different bases for additional overseas training. Following the conclusion of this training, she was assigned to the United States Army Air Forces. She crossed the Atlantic on a 14-day voyage on the troop transport ship, the RMS Aquitania. Most of the passengers got seasick. And whereas at a base near Cambridge, England, she was trained as an office worker, a member of the 8th Air Force, the mighty 8th, she typed, took dictation, and decoded messages. She was stationed there until the Germans surrendered and then spent a few months in France. Discharged with the rank of sergeant, she sailed home on the RMS Queen Mary, resulting in a much more pleasant trip across the Atlantic. Whereas upon her return, she married Conrad Stewart, a veteran she met while in service. From this union, they had 2 sons and a daughter, and now have 11 grandchildren and 7 great-grandchildren. They were married 63 years. Whereas in addition to starting a family, she attended Peabody College and majored in business, followed by an advanced degree in education. When she moved to Illinois, she taught school for over 30 years, with all but 2 years in Peoria School District 150. And whereas the city of Peoria wishes to honor Eleanor Stewart on the occasion of her 100th birthday for her service to our country and her indelible impact on our city and our residents and the quality of life we enjoy. Now, therefore, I, Rita Ali, Mayor of the City of Peoria, and on behalf of the Peoria City Council, do hereby acknowledge the life and legacy of Eleanor Stewart in Illinois. Thank you.
her behalf, I would like to thank you for this and for the cards that some of you had sent her as well. It really made her birthday memorable. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Councilman Greb, did you want to make any remarks?
That adds to Eleanor's portfolio is all of her years of service to the children at Peoria Public Schools. This is an outstanding lady, and this is well overdue. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you. Should be very proud. Madam Clerk?
We are at the minutes.
Councilman Euler?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I move to approve the minutes of the joint city council and town board meeting held on December 14th, 2021 as printed.
Can I get a second? Seconded by Councilman Kelly. Any questions, comments? Cast your ballots. Okay. Can you change it? Councilmember Sear?
Aye.
Councilmember Valpula?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We have one town item. 22-001 is a request from the town officials to approve the December 2021 actual expenditures and to approve the January 2022 anticipated expenditures for the town of the city of Peoria.
Councilmember Grant?
Mayor Lee, I move to approve the expenditures as outlined both for December of 21 as well as January of 22.
Seconded by Councilmember Jackson. Any comments, questions? Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Sear?
Aye.
Councilmember Valpula?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We are at the consent agenda. 22-002 is a communication from the Mayor and Corporation Council with a request to approve the declaration of local state of emergency. 22-003 is a communication from the City Manager and Community Development Director with a request to approve a contract with GIMAX for demolition of residential properties. 22-004 is a communication with a request to approve a 2-year contract with Target Solutions Learning, LLC, for training software to schedule, track, and monitor mandated training for all fire personnel in the amount of $16,944.65 per year for a total amount of $33,889.30. 21-387 is a communication from the City Manager and Corporation Council with a request for the following. A, to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 28 of the Code of the City of Peoria regarding automated traffic violations, and B, to approve and authorize the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Peoria and Peoria Public Schools District 150 for operation of the automated traffic violation system. 22-005 is a communication with a request to concur with a recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class R3 single-family residential district for a short-term rental for the property located at 3302 North Brooks Lane. 22-006 is a communication with a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class R4 single-family residential district for a short-term rental for the property located at 1502 North Indiana Avenue, Peoria, Illinois. 22-007 is a communication with a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class R3 single-family residential district for a short-term rental for the property located at 3114 North Lynn Hill Court, Peoria, Illinois. 22-008 is a communication with a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance amending an existing special use ordinance number 16725 as amended in a Class R4 single-family residential district for existing non-conforming offices to install a freestanding sign with waivers for the property located at 1716 North University Street, Peoria, Illinois. And that concludes our consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any items to remove from consent? Councilmember Jensen?
22003 and 22006.
Thank you. Any other items? Can I get a motion to approve consent? Councilmember Allen, seconded by Councilmember Ruckriegel. Any comments, questions? Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Seer,
Aye.
Councilmember Valpula,
Aye.
motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
22-003 is a communication from the City Manager and Community Development Director with a request to approve a contract with JIMAX for demolition of residential properties.
Councilmember Jensen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to defer this item for 2 weeks.
Seconded by Councilmember Jackson. Any comments?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, just 1 second. Did you have your light on, Councilmember Jackson?
No, that was a mistake.
Okay. Councilmember Seer?
What's the reasoning for the deferment?
A few questions have arisen that the staff is just double checking a few things, and they believe that 2 weeks is enough time to take care of that and to make a few changes in the contract language to clarify some things.
Okay.
Councilmember Euler? Okay. All right, any other questions, comments? Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Seer?
Yes.
Councilmember Valpula?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
22-006 is a communication with a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class R4 single-family residential district for a short-term rental for the property located at 1502 North Indiana Avenue, Peoria, Illinois.
Councilmember Jensen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had this pulled because I just wanted to bring up an item that causes me some concern. You'll notice that the applicant for this short-term rental is also somebody who serves on the Planning and Zoning Commission board. Although he recused himself from this specific item, he still presented his case and gave input on it, and I believe he has not recused himself on other short-term rentals that have come before that board. So this just is an item that concerns me. I think it puts all the short-term rentals that have been approved by this body into question. So I bring that forward. I want the public to be aware of it. I'd like a report back from the staff on whether or not he's recused himself from all the discussions on short-term rentals. And as a follow-up, I'd also like staff to give us a list of the members of this board and why they're on that board, what interests they represent. I'm concerned that we don't have anybody on the Planning and Zoning Commission and other commissions that are dealing with neighborhood issues that are neighborhood advocates or neighborhood leaders. This gentleman owns short-term rentals and Airbnbs. He's a realtor whose primary business is in East Peoria, and he lives in East Peoria. So I don't think that he's doing this city and our neighborhoods a service by serving on that board. So I just want to make that note and ask staff if they would provide a report back on, or provide us with the minutes of all the other discussions related to short-term rentals that have been before the zoning, the Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you.
Legal counsel, are you aware of any legal issues related to the concerns that have been communicated by Councilwoman Jensen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was not aware that the applicant was also a member of the Planning and Zoning Committee. As long as that individual recused themselves from the vote and it passed with a majority vote, just because he happens to own a short-term rental, I don't think that would prohibit that individual from participating in other discussions in regards to short-term rentals.
Thank you. Councilmember Euler?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The applicant lives at 5620 North Knoxville Avenue in Peoria.
Thank you. Councilmember Riggenbach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Corporation Counsel, for that quick rundown. I just was a little confused, too, why just because somebody's in a business that they couldn't vote on it. So I'll look forward to a complete report back next time, but I would move for approval of this item 22-006.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Recreagle. Further discussion? Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Sear?
Aye.
Councilmember Valpula?
Aye.
Motion passes with one nay. Jensen. Madam Clerk?
We're at regular business. 22-009 is a communication from the City Manager and Human Resources Director with a request to receive and file a presentation from the Fire and Police Commission and the Annual Performance Goals Report covering the period of January 2021 through December 2021. And on your desk, there is a handout with the Police Department presentation.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, this is the time of the year when we have our reports from the police and fire department on their efforts towards diversifying both the fire service and the police service. We have two presentations tonight, and then we'll have some time for questions. We also have Pastor Marvin Hightower is here from the NAACP, who has been very closely involved in the development of this plan, as well as Deborah Bush from the Department of Human Resources is here as well, who's been very important and instrumental in helping us to implement this. So I'd like to turn it over to the Chief Echeverria to start with the Police Department presentation, and then we'll follow up with the Fire Department presentation right after.
It's all yours, Chief.
Good evening. Thank you. I will try to keep this as short as possible. These numbers can get a little boring. So this is going to be our 2022 demographics report. As you can see here, these are going to be the pages that I will be going through that coincide with the slides. Peoria Police Department's annual diversity report compares the data between January 2018 and January of 2022. And this is going to compare the most accurate data for all areas of demographics. So our 2022 Peoria Police Department demographics. We have 196 sworn police officers in total. We just swore in 10 recruits, so that's another 10 on top of that we just did yesterday. We're sworn in. Minorities make up 20% of our sworn police officers. 82% are male, 18% are females. You can see that that number is up by 1% from 2021 as we go into 22. Some of these numbers are a little off because we swore in some new officers, so just please keep that in mind. African Americans make 13%, white are 79%, Hispanic are 5%, and Asian is 3%. And we don't have any other category that falls under other. And as you look at the pie chart, you can kind of see the numbers of where we lie percentage-wise per demographic in the group. I'll give you a moment to take a look at that, but African-American males are 9%, Hispanic males are 4%, Asian males are 2%, white females are 13%, African-American females are 3%, Hispanic female 1%, Asian female 1%. Separations, it's unknown when we talk about some of the separations here, if they resigned, officers went to another agency or the private sector. However, we had 20 sworn officers retire in 2021. 25% of those were minorities. Another 11 officers resigned, and 9% of those being minorities as well. In 2020, 52% were minority, separated. In 2021, 25% were minority in 2021. As you look here between 2015 and 2019 demographics, our separations, we had 8 African-American females separate, 12 white females, 1 other male, 6 Hispanic males, 18 African-American males. In 2021, we had a total of 21 separations. In 2022, in 2021, we had 21 separations, and we're looking at here. In 2020, we had, my numbers are off here. In 2020, we had 21 separations, and in 2021, we had 31 separations. See the numbers across the top. Although the numbers, the percentages seem to be a bit different, 25 and 27. You see that white males in 2021 were the higher category that separated from the agency. New hires, these are our total new hires that we've had. PPD has had 25 minorities apply to be an officer in 2021, comprising 18% of all applicants. Of those 25, 56% did not submit required documents or did not show up to take the written exam. The 44% that were left who did submit the required documents, 91% of those were placed in the hiring pool. So it's important to know those numbers. If they get their documents in and have all their information in, 91% of them go on to the hiring pool. In total hires in 2018, we had 19. In 2019, we had 14. In 2020, there was 10. In 2021, there was 20. As we move into 2022 now, we've had 10 so far, and we're looking at another 20 that we will be hiring this year. Protected class currently makes up 33% of our recruits, with minorities making up 11%. As you look at our 2022 numbers, those numbers that are up there, we changed them as of yesterday. It's really 40% are protected class, 30% are minorities, and another 10% women. If you look back to 2021, you can see the changes that we've had. 60% were minorities, or protected class, 33 were, 55% were minorities, and 1% were women. And in 2020, 50% were protected class, 38% minorities, and 21% were women. While the PPD cadet program has seen a large decrease in its members, the police department still strives to keep minorities involved, and minorities currently make up 50% of the cadets. 2022, it's a 50-50 split, minorities and white males. We will be looking to hire some more cadets. Two of the new hires that we currently have are former cadets, which is great that we have that pipeline for officers. So we'll be looking for more cadets here in the near future. In 2021, 50% were males, 50% were women, and 100% were a protected class. In 2020, as we go back, 71% were a protected class, 43% were minorities, and 43% So our placement goals. I obviously wasn't here in 2015, but as I entered here and we look at our numbers, these were milestones that were set. The goal of raising diversity by 9% is very difficult. If you look at the numbers from 2021 to 2022, we were at 22%. The goal was 29%. So we were at 2022, and as we walk into 2022, we want to be at 31%. We've seen that as you look at the numbers, there's a fluctuation that goes up and down by approximately 2 or 3%. So I think a more achievable goal would be to be at a 23 to 25% mark, and we definitely want to strive for that higher mark. But to really be at a more achievable goal, we may have to looking at that at a 23 to 25% mark for us to be more achievable. And in summary, in 2021, minority applicants were 1 out of every 3. In 2021, female minority applicants were 1 out of every 7. In 2021, our hiring pool protected class was 3 out of every 8. In 2021, PPD new hires, police department new hires, protected class were 3 out of every 6. In the cadet program as well, it was 2 out of every 4 in 2022 as we walk into, so that's going to be a 50% percentage there. And in 2022, our PPD current protected class is 3 out of every 9, about a 33%. And to conclude, the Peoria Police Department strives to represent the community to which it serves. For diversity is the magic. It is the first manifestation, the first beginning of the differentiation of a thing and of a simple identity. The greater the diversity, the greater the perfection, quoted by Thomas Berry. So, thank you.
Chief, thank you for that presentation. I just want to point out relative to the milestone placement goals. I was actually part of that process with the NAACP and others, diversity committee with police and fire when we put those initial goals together. And there's been some discussion about revisiting the milestone or placement goals. The first year they were met, the second year they were more or less met, but as you move, from year to year, the gaps seem to widen. So while we want goals that are ambitious, we also want goals that are achievable, attainable. And so, I think it's important that the committee reconvene and take a look at revisiting and adjusting the milestone. Keep it ambitious, keep it aggressive, but at the same time, let's get some goals that are also attainable. Any questions, comments for Chief Echeverria? Questions? Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Chief, for the presentation tonight. Although we would love to be working towards those milestone goals, we are moving in the right direction, which I think is great. Can you share with us and the public some of the recruitment tactics that you all are seeing that are working specifically when it comes to recruiting minority candidates?
What I'll say is this: with this last group, we really see 9 out of the 10 were from Peoria, so that's a great thing. One was out of Chicago, one of the minority men, and everybody else was from Peoria. So we're definitely hitting the mark here. I think our recruiting tactics as we move forward, there's a recruitment team put in place. We're working hand in hand with, obviously, with Deborah to figure out how we continue to move forward and touch our military transition centers, our HBCUs and Hispanic serving institutions. And we're actually looking at possibly moving to a new test. We wanted to do it earlier in the year, but everything's moved so quick and we needed to get people hired. It was going to be very difficult to move towards a new test. So we're still in those discussions and see if we can move to that new process as we move to the end of the year. We now have a new captain that's going to take over recruitment and the training portion. Just recently promoted Lieutenant McCall to captain. He's going to be overseeing that. In his interviews, he had some great presentations on some recruitment things we wanted to put in place. So we're excited to see where we go.
Thank you, Chief, for all you do. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Any other questions for the chief? Not, thank you, Chief, and we'll invite Chief Bachman with the fire department.
Good evening.
Evening.
Thank you for this opportunity. Paul, do you need my zip drive?
What? No pressure, Paul. Mr. Urick?
I would just like to point out, it's nice that it happens to the IS department as well. So we're all not alone in this situation where the computer crashes and then we have to wait for it to reboot.
Appreciate that. I was going to do this afterwards, but while we're waiting for Chief Bachman's presentation to come up, I wanted to ask for any comments. Pastor Hightower, he's the president of NAACP, whether you had any comments. You know, preachers can also always fill the gap
Well, I don't have a lot to say, really, other than what has been said, which is I think it is time for us to come back together. I know goals are lofty, but we need to revisit so that we can bring them into reality and bring them into focus. But I believe, especially on the police side as well as the fire department, that we do have the right leadership in place now to come together and then move forward. So I thank the council, I thank the mayor for taking this seriously and doing what needs to be done to make Peoria better for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you for your leadership, Pastor. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. All right, with that, I'll get started. So this is just the abbreviation legends you're going to see. These abbreviations throughout the presentation, so you know what they are. They'll make sense as we progress through. So a little history, community partnerships. Back in 2016, the PFD entered into a joint partnership with Peoria Public Schools and Illinois Central College. This established a dual credit with Woodruff Career and Technical Center. That's a program for juniors and seniors where they can take EMT classes and fire service technology classes and get credit for that. Both of these programs are still they're still functioning, and we still have students, although the students' numbers are down. I will say, in conjunction with that, I did have, and this last fall, had 4 individuals approach me and wanted to have a talk about reinvigorating this program. And they really had a great long-term strategy as it comes to trying to get more interest for this program where juniors and seniors can get high school and college credit while going to school down here at Woodruff Career and Technical Center. And their strategy, although it's a pilot program and it is taking a little time to get off the ground, is to reach down into the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grades and start having conversations with students in the Peoria Public School System, talking to them about what it means to be a Peoria firefighter, what being a firefighter is about, also teaching them possibly CPR classes and other things. They did sit down with Dr. Karat, and she was very excited, and they have been into a few schools. Like I said, it's still a pilot program, but we have a lot of hope for this to help generate more interest in the fire service, especially for our Peoria youth. So some of our other initiatives and recruitment activities. In 2016, we redeveloped the Fire Cadet Apprenticeship Program, and we hired 3 cadets, 1 African-American male, 1 Caucasian male, and 1 African-American female. In 2017, we hired 3 more, 1 African-American male, 1 Hispanic male, and 1 Caucasian female. However, in 2018, the Fire Cadet Program was cut due to contractual agreements, stating that if we were to make cuts to the fire department, the cadet program would be eliminated. The Fire Explorer program, however, is still ongoing. It's a separate program, and it operates independently of the fire department. And the best way to describe that is there's individuals who volunteer their time. It's almost like a scouting type program. They use the fire academy, they use the fire tower, they do hands-on training, but they also do some classroom stuff. In 2020, obviously, we backed off of recruitment due to lack of hiring, and COVID played a role, of course. 2021, our recruitment efforts began to resume. We attended local events such as Night Out Against Crime and Juneteenth Fest. We did attend collegiate job fairs, both in person and virtually. We have leveraged online and social media outlets to help us keep our costs down. Billboard ads with diversity as a theme. And then, of course, during these sessions, we're handing out informational postcards and just some background of what candidates need to be looking to do in order to be eligible to apply. And then we've been holding open gym for our CPAT, and our CPAT is our candidate physical agility test that they must pass to come on the job. So our operations, our line personnel, we have 6 battalion chiefs, 48 fire captains, 48 fire engineers, and 58 firefighters. So this is when we talk about operation line personnel, this is where, firefighters that are brand new first come on the job. They're on a fire machine, and this is where they start out. This is where the firefighting activities and the EMS activities take place. When we're at full complement, we have 160. Currently, we're at 157. We just started academy on Monday with 3 new recruits. So again, we're at 157. We have 1 Caucasian female fire battalion chief, 1 African American fire battalion chief, and 5 African American fire captains, 1 African American fire captain. 1 Asian American male fire captain, 1 African American fire engineer, 2 Hispanic male firefighters, and 10 African American firefighters, 2 Caucasian female firefighters. In our command staff, we have 5 total, 4 Caucasian male and 1 African American male, 2 fire mechanics, both Caucasian male, 6 staff prevention positions, 1 African American male and 5 Caucasian male, 1 staff training position, 1 African, and that's 1 African American male. The staff training position is the captain out of the fire tower. 1 physical technician, Caucasian female, and 2 administrative specialists, 1 African American female and 1 Caucasian female. Currently, our promotional lists are battalion chief list and a captain's list. For the battalion chief list that expires in 2023, we have 10 Caucasian males, 2 African American males, and 1 Asian male. On the captain's list that expires in 2022, we have 17 Caucasian males and 1 African American male. So on to separation and onboarding. Retirements in 2020, we had 7 Caucasian males, 7 African American males, and 1 Hispanic male retire. As you can see, that was in our retirements for that year, that was greater than 50% of protected class. Retirements in 2021, we had 5 Caucasian males and 1 African American male and 1 Asian male. The Peoria Fire Rescue Department onboarded 16 firefighters this past year in 2021, with 10 of them being Caucasian male, 5 being African American male, and 1 Hispanic male. Resignations since 2018. We've had 7 Caucasian male, 4 African American male, and 1 Caucasian female. Again, just to go over the percentages here for the 16 we hired this past year, 31% were African American male, 6% Hispanic male, and 62% Caucasian male, with a total protected class of 37%. We're currently in the process of establishing a new pool, and the current pool we're operating under only has one Caucasian male left in it. And we are looking for a completed list, a new pool, beginning March of this year. So this is very difficult to see, but if you could see it, I apologize. I didn't know it was going to be that bad. This is basically a chart, and it's older. It's our testing statistics from 2020. So what you can look at and see, and I think the police departments, I know the fire departments are struggling just to get applicants to apply for these positions. We received a total of 125 applications for March of 2020, and 111 of them were male and 14 were female applicants. By the time we got through the process, we were down to a total of 39 applicants that were eligible, and all of them being male. Now, there's a number of reasons that they become ineligible. They don't pass the candidate physical agility test. They don't turn in certain documents that's required. They fail the written. They don't show to the written. So, those are some of the reasons that we end up with lower numbers. So currently, we have a total staff, and this includes everybody under the fire department, 178 employees, which is down from a high of 214 in 2014. Currently, we have African Americans represent 11% of the staff, 87%, or Caucasians represent 87%, Hispanic 1%, Asian is 0.5%. Females at 3%, and of course males at 97%. Sorry, apologize again. That one's really difficult for me to see even. This just kind of breaks down that previous page with a bar graph showing those numbers and comparing it to 2020. And really 2020 is very similar to 2021. The biggest difference was that we went from 8% in 2020 for African American males to 11%, but not a huge difference there. So we did have, and I don't believe I had it in there, but we did have 3 resignations in 2021. 2 of them were African American males, and 1 was a Caucasian male. The 2 African American males left for Colorado, and 1 is on Aurora Fire Department in Aurora, Colorado, and I'm not sure which fire department the other gentleman went to. And with that, I'll open it for questions.
Chief, when was the last time that a female was hired in the fire department?
I believe it's 2018.
2018?
I believe so. I believe there were 2 in 2018. We had another female that was hired. I think she was 2018. She might have been 2016. Okay. When she left, she resigned and went back into her career in nursing. Okay. So she's a nurse now.
And with females, has it been more of a challenge with the recruiting, or is there a breakdown in the testing? There was some type of very difficult test.
Yeah, so years ago, and Deborah may have to help me out with this. Sorry to put you on the spot.
A physical test?
Yeah, the physical test years ago. So we switched to the candidate physical agility test, which is more of a nationwide, nationally recognized test, where we used to do what we called the combat challenge.
That's it. Okay.
We used to do the combat challenge. I think, and I want to say it was 15, maybe 20 years we did that for. And very, very few females. pass the combat challenge. We did have, one of our female battalion chiefs that's on now, she did pass that exam. I think there were a few, but then that did pass, but for other reasons decided not to continue on, or maybe they didn't pass the written, or whatever the reason was.
So you've changed the testing to make it more compatible for actual hiring of female applicants? Is that what you're saying, or?
Yeah, I don't know the decision behind it exactly, other than I can say that this is probably a more accurate representation because it is a nationally recognized test. I think it's what fire departments, I know it's what fire departments across the country have gone to, and some are still going to.
Do you have anything to add to that, Ms. Bush?
Well, this test is supposed to be more job related.
Can you go to the microphone? It's for the audience that's not here.
The CPAT test that we use now is more job related, so it's a little, I won't say easier, but more women are more apt to pass this test than it was for the combat challenge. There's a lot of, when we pass out the information on it, it tells you how you can get ready and work out to pass the test. So I won't, like I said, I don't want to say it's easier because it is a hard test, but women have more of a chance to pass the CPAT than they did that combat challenge, because that one, we couldn't get any. We do have some women, but if you don't hurry up and hire them right away, they're gone to another department. So sometimes when we do get a woman or so on our list, they're gone before we can get to them.
Okay. Well, stick around just in case we have questions for you also, Ms. Bush. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Chief, for your presentation today. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the current promotional list slide? Just specifically, when you say these lists are expiring in 2023 and 2022, respectively. And sorry, I'm not familiar with the process of promotion within the fire department. Can you just talk a little bit about what that means?
Right. So I'm sorry, I didn't explain that better. Those lists are good for 2 years, and so 1 year we only have 2 promotional lists. One's for the captain spot and one's for a battalion chief spot, and they're good for 2 years because of how much we stagger them. So one expires 1 year and one expires the next. So every year we have a test. 1 year is the captain's test, and the next year is battalion chief's test. There's a lot that goes into preparation, securing a testing company, and things like that. So, contractually they're good for 2 years, and so they expire every 2 years, and that's what that's about. There's multiple components for scoring. There's a written portion. Of course, there's an extensive assessment center where they have. It depends on what fire administration comes up with the testing company on what kind of components we want to have in the test. But there's always a component that has to do with taking command of a fire and knowing your resources, being able to give a proper size up, and they do that by having multiple assessors in the room with somebody playing the role of dispatch and somebody playing the role of assessor and so on and so forth. So it's kind of a role play thing, but it really gets a feel and a score for how well they do under stress and under pressure to recognize certain fire hazards as events are unfolding and call for the resources they need.
And in your opinion, historically speaking, do you see more minorities in leadership roles within the fire department?
Historically speaking, it's been rather slim. This past year, our division chief of operations was promoted from battalion chief to division chief. This year, we promoted a captain to battalion chief, who's overseeing our role of battalion chief of EMS. So with our minorities numbers being low, it's really difficult. And then, we did have quite a few retire a couple years ago, but.
Thank you, Chief, for all you do, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Jensen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to make sure, it looks to me, I know you put down the percentage of females of all the staff was 3%, but of firefighters, line personnel, it looks like there's only 3 females of 157, is that right?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Have we ever had more than 3 females as firefighters?
I believe before the resignation of, I believe we had maybe 4 or 5 at one time at the very most, but I think the most we've had at any one time is 4.
So I'm glad to hear from Deb that there's at least 2 or 3 in the pool right now. Is that right? What do we need to do to make that, expedite that, and offer them jobs and get this going? I was so excited when Riley joined and was sworn in, and I think that might be when we had the most. That might be when we had 4 in 2018, and it looked like we were improving, but I'm discouraged to see that, we're not increasing those numbers.
Yeah, it's certainly difficult. I don't think we get, a lot of applications from the females. But I will say that one of the things we've been doing since November is having these, because the biggest challenge is the numbers, but also the candidate physical agility test. It's like Deborah said, it's still a very difficult test. Right. What we've been holding since November, I think it's been, was open gym sessions on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and then for like 6 hours on Saturdays. Except for during the holidays, we didn't do it then, but we've been holding open gym sessions, and so they can come in and practice this candidate physical agility test. And we have firefighters down there to encourage them and give them tips and encourage them to work out on their day off if they're struggling in any one area.
So, did you get good attendance, or at least the ones that are in the hiring pool?
Attendance is, I believe, better this time around than it was in 2020, but I wouldn't say it's a huge difference.
Well, whatever we can do to help get more women and minorities, let us know. I think you guys are making efforts, and we appreciate that, but it's important to keep at it and do all we can do to make the fire department look like the rest of the city. So thank you.
I'll add one other thing. Through an invitation from Dr. Jeffries of the Urban League, we were down there a couple nights in a row for an open house. So we have recruitment efforts in that area, and we're open to any suggestions, and really trying to reinvigorate that recruitment committee also.
Yeah. COVID has hurt us a lot as far as the ideas that we had about recruiting. So we're just trying to make the best of this situation right now. I do know there are a few ladies that have passed that CPAT. It's just that we don't hire enough firefighters fast enough. Like police, we're hiring all the time. Firefighters, we don't, because we don't have as many openings, so we don't hire a lot. So they don't want to sit on the list, and people are snatching the women up faster than anything. So that's another problem. We don't hire as much for firefighters as we do for police. So the few that we do get, they're gone.
Yeah. How do we compare to other cities with regards to women on the force?
That's something I could certainly look into, but I don't have any specific numbers.
I'd be interested in that if you would do that. Thank you.
Certainly.
Good, and I hope that you'll utilize your existing firefighter women and minorities in your recruitment activities. I think the role models actually help to draw others to that field. So it's not seen as a, male dominated. It is male dominated, but but still male only. We don't want it seen as a male only career. So thank you for your efforts. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Chair, anything else?
The only thing I would add, Madam Mayor, is that we will certainly convene the committee and revisit the goals and work on that over the course of 2022 and look forward to coming back with more information and hopefully more progress.
Very good. Thank you. Councilman Kelly, did you have a comment?
No, Madam Mayor, but I would move to receive and file.
Okay. Seconded by Councilwoman Jackson. Thank you for that. And if there's no more comments, please cast your ballots. Councilmember Sear?
Aye.
Councilmember Valpula?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
22-010 is a communication from the city manager with a request to approve the 2022 annual city legislative agenda.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, in front of you this evening, you have the proposed 2022 legislative agenda. As you know, we traditionally put items on the agenda that we request direct sponsorship from our legislators, as well as funding requests or capital project requests, as well as then items of legislative support. So this evening we have in front of you 6 items and requests for direct sponsorship from our legislators. The first of which is public safety pension reform. The second is the extension of the 911 surcharge that funds our 911 system in Peoria County. And the third is economic development incentives and making sure that we support expanded economic development tools for the state and for municipalities. The fourth item is the request regarding tax abatement, that it would be, the law would be amended to include residential rehabilitation as well as new construction. The fifth item is land bank operations and support legislation that strengthens the abilities of land banks to operate in Illinois. And then lastly, for direct sponsorship was the request for support of the passage of a resolution of support for passenger rail connecting Peoria, the largest metropolitan area in the state that is not served by passenger rail. We have 7 funding requests that include a request of our legislators to support those projects that have already been approved as part of the prior budget processes, but making sure that those actually get funded. New requests for smart city initiatives, for the Cradle to Career initiative. That was a cooperative effort between ICC, Peoria Public Schools, the City of Peoria, and a number of other agencies and efforts. More additional funding for support of passenger rail, support of mental health funding for our community, as well as a co-response model for law enforcement as they address trying to deal with persons that are mentally ill in the community, as well as funding for violence reduction. We have a series of capital project requests that include vertical capital projects like the relocation of the post office on State Street and the Warehouse District parking structure, to horizontal capital projects which include Pioneer Parkway, Allen Road, Laramie Avenue, Route 116, which is Lincoln and Howlett Streets, as well as the Springdale Cemetery Road network. So those items are the specific requests that we have of our legislators. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on those items. We also have with us this evening our 2 lobbyists that represent us in Springfield, and that's Vince Williams and John Camus. And I'd like to ask if they could come up to the microphone and just share a little bit about themselves, about what we might see this coming year in Springfield, and just kind of their approach towards dealing with our legislators.
Yes, welcome, Mr. Williams, Mr. Camus. We're glad to have you supporting us in Springfield. And while you're going to introduce yourselves tonight and talk about strategy, we are wanting you to meet in small groups with City Council members, no more than 3 at a time, to have some follow-up discussions and more in-depth discussions, and also to get to know you better.
Good evening, members of the council and Madam Mayor, staff, and members of the public. My name is Vincent Williams. I am a 25-year lobbyist from working down in Springfield. I started my service with another city up the road, a piece called the City of Chicago, where I represented Mayor Daley, and I've been involved in various areas of lobbying pursuits in the public and private sector. And I am extremely excited to be working with my partner, John Camus, who also has a City of Chicago legacy, though he has some governor's office experience as well, so he'll talk about that when he introduces himself. But I think together we are pressed because of the census and the political map. They've moved the primary, as you know, to June, which required them to shorten the legislative session, which normally would go from January to May 31, is now going from January to April 8th, which means we only have a few weeks to accomplish what we would normally have a few months to accomplish. So John and I have talked to leadership, been speaking to members in Springfield, and spoke with the mayor and Mr. Urick and asked them to help us to focus on the priority issues for the city. And we expect that we will plant seeds this spring with hopefully an opportunity to do as happens in agriculture, we'll harvest in the fall, because I'm not optimistic that there will be a great appetite to take on controversial issues. But of the list that we've called into this particular agenda, I think that we can realistically achieve some of the things that we've discussed so far. But we had a much more ambitious agenda, but when we had the session shortened, we had to more realistically place it around the political realities that are happening in Springfield. I'm looking forward to having the more discreet conversations with each of you, and it's a pleasure to have had the opportunity to meet you this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Camus?
Madam Mayor, members of council, John Camus, thank you for having me here tonight. I am a partner at Turing Strategies. We're a 5-person government relations firm. I have been a contract lobbyist for the last 10 years. We started Turing Strategies May of 2020. My partner, Lindsay Anderson, is the former legislative director of the governor's office and the chairwoman of the Board of Higher Education. We have staff from the House and Senate. Our firm represents clients such as Google, Pew Charitable Trust, Deloitte, and a number of others. I can't tell you how excited I am to represent Peoria. I went to school here at Bradley. Peoria is a very special place to me. I'm back here several times each year. So very excited to be able to work with this council, and very grateful that you've entrusted me to be able to represent you in Springfield. Very lucky also to be able to work with Vince. He and I have known each other since I've started going down to Springfield. He's someone I consider a friend and a mentor. I'm biased, but I think lobbying on behalf of the city of Chicago is a great starting place. Most bills touch the city of Chicago in some way, but you also understand issues related to municipalities. My background is I started in the mayor's office. I was then Governor Quinn's campaign manager in the 2010 primary, went into the administration as a senior advisor for economic development and legislative affairs. My portfolio included the state's economic development agencies such as DCEO, Department of Transportation, a lot of the agencies that the city works very closely with. A couple things just to add what Vince said about session. It will be short. There is really not a lot of appetite to do large controversial things. There has been large agenda items passed each of the last several years. The one thing to keep in mind, though, we have new leadership in both chambers, and that leadership has only really presided over COVID sessions. Session in 2020, I believe, lasted 6 days, and there were only 30 bills passed as opposed to the average of around 700. Also, half of the House of Representatives have served less than 4 years. And for a lot of people in Springfield, it is difficult to have gotten to know those members, especially when a lot of session was virtual. Last year was a good exercise in understanding how to approach that. Luckily, Vince and I have been trained in the same way to build relationships with members year-round. because a lot of people were stuck texting, trying to get in touch with members when we're trying to meet virtually. It looks like that's probably going to be the case for the next couple weeks. Session was scheduled for last week and this week. Last week it was truncated to just one day, and this week was canceled. So it looks like they'll probably be going down virtually. The other thing to keep in mind is while this might be a short session, the state has probably received more money than we'll ever see it receiving in our lifetimes. And it's going to be very important to be thoughtful of how to take advantage of that. What that means practically for the administration is there's a lot of administration and a lot of logistics. So we passed a very significant capital bill when Governor Pritzker came into office. We're now adding in COVID response, ARPA funding, and another infrastructure bill. So being very thoughtful about what opportunities that presents is going to be critically important, but also tracking the items that we already have appropriations for and making sure that those get released and those projects are prioritized. Peoria is blessed with really, really wonderful representatives who have been in Springfield for a long time, who have wonderful reputations, and I know care very deeply about the city. That should seem like the norm. It's not. Not everyone is blessed in the same way that Peoria is. So looking forward to working with all of you. Grateful for the opportunity to be here tonight, and I'm sure we'll be working closely throughout the session.
Thank you, John. We're very blessed to have this dynamic duo, I would say, to represent us in Springfield at the most opportune time when, as John indicated, we're going to see more funding opportunities than we've seen in decades. So thank you. We're looking forward to working with you. And again, we'll be setting up meetings so that you can get to know the council better. Mr. Manager? Council, questions, comments relative to the proposed agenda or questions for our new lobbyists? Councilmember Regenbach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Manager, do we have a date set for the legislative workshop?
We don't, and I think with this year, with just the climate with COVID, that we probably won't have a legislative breakfast, that we'll just simply share our legislative proposals and agenda with the legislators. In talking with the county, I think that they were kind of feeling the same way. So
Not even a virtual?
I don't believe that there was a desire on the county side, but we can certainly check and see.
I just would say, based on our past experience, that sitting down face to face is always a more powerful plea when you have budgets like this. So I would ask to have that revisited.
So I think one of the advantages, too, of coming together with the county and other groups is that we also get to see their combined agenda. We see their agenda as well. Can we, Mr. Manager, look at having something virtual that we can see the shared agenda? I like that idea. Yes, yes. Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you both, Mr. Williams and Mr. Camus. I just was just kind of curious and excited at the same time. I used to cover the state legislature as a reporter for maybe about 15 years. But how has the state given you, how optimistic are you with so much money coming down the pipeline that we will be able to see some of these items on our wish list come to fruition? And are we in any way, shape, or form under timeline constraints? Sometimes money has a way of disappearing. And with this much at stake, we certainly here in Peoria do not want to lose out.
John spoke to it, but I think he was being a little modest about the powerhouse team that you have in Springfield. I happen to have had the opportunity to work with Representative Gordon Booth in her very first election, and now she is Speaker Pro Tem and in leadership and speaks to the Speaker daily. Not very many members have that advantage. Senator Cahill is in leadership in the Senate and is very well respected, and they're not going to leave Springfield without their piece of the pie, guaranteed. Our role is to ensure that all of the opportunities for them to have the request made clear and plain to the balance of the folks that need to hear it. That's John and my responsibility, because we need 60 votes in the House and 30 votes in the Senate. And our role is to use our relationships and help them in bringing things across the finish line. They haven't ferreted out exactly how the pie is going to be divided, but I'm very confident that Peoria in this cycle will not be left behind.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jensen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Welcome, Mr. Camus and Mr. Williams. We're very excited to have you both representing us and lobbying on our behalf in Springfield. I think it's going to be really beneficial to the city. So I'm, for one, very excited to have you both here. One question I have, I'm wondering whether, what your thoughts are about and whether any other municipalities are looking into trying to get a bigger share or be allowed to tax the cannabis distributors at a higher percentage. Or I know when that's been a huge revenue source for the state, and I think we're capped by the amount that we can. It's not very much that we are even allowed to tax those that the places that are distributing and selling them in the city. So I'm just wondering if there's anyone else has asked about that or asked you to look into that.
No one has to this point, but I want to sort of broaden it out. We'll also be working with the IML very closely. They have a broad legislative agenda. Generally, municipalities speaking as one voice is much more powerful. Those are the kind of things that we'll track as we get down there, and we're very interested in conversations. I have not heard that or seen as introduced legislation, but it's something we can definitely check into.
Okay, I appreciate that.
One of my clients is Cresco Labs, which is one of the largest cannabis companies. And the counties have attempted to ferret out some way for them to get a bigger piece so that the local share is larger. What I thought the IML did very well in the construction of the bill in its original form was to make the local imperative for zoning and for its desire to accept cannabis business or not. But I think that what we have the opportunity to do is to report on the benefits as they exist today and be able to make the case for why we would need the increase, because the state would argue that they need that what they're getting, and they don't, because the share would come most likely from the state's portion, because the state is, this industry is taxed more than any other industry so far, so there'd probably be a bit of pushback.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there could be some opportunities, but I think we'd have to make the case for what an additional percent or 0.5% or 1/4% would mean to the municipalities who have taken the risk along with the state to create this industry.
Okay.
I'll just add one other quick thing. The other thing we'd be up against, and we'll check into this and find out more, is the state is still having a very difficult time getting their social equity applicants licensed and up and running. So I think that is the priority focus. I've spoken with the Secretary of the Department of Professional Financial Regulation about this. It is a massive, they are way behind where they want to be. So anything is going to be part of a larger discussion, but we're certainly happy to check into that.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your presentation and for agreeing to represent us in Springfield. I'm wondering, Springfield has received an infusion of cash from the feds, and so everybody's happy, everybody's awash. But I'm wondering, Peoria, Illinois has already authorized, or the legislature has already authorized Peoria, Illinois to receive $64 million existing projects. That's a lot of money. And I'm just wondering if you multiply that throughout the state. Is there very much more money than that for the agenda we have before us here? When I speak of the 64 million, I mean the money that's already authorized but has not yet crossed our threshold. Is my question clear?
I have had the opportunity on behalf of the Gift of Hope. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them. They're an organ donation company that works in many of the hospitals across the state, particularly in this region in Chicago as well. And they're doing a vertical project in Chicago, and Representative Gordon Booth was asked a similar question. And in that first iteration of budget allotments to entities across the state, it was tied to a bond issue that the state is going to issue since they've gotten their credit rating increased, and also relying on some of the casino revenue that's going to come from the Chicago casino. So the issue isn't whether we get it, the issue is going to be about timing, and that's why it's not a doubt that we're going to get more resources because the pot has grown. The issue is going to be when that pot is going to be dispersed and what the legislature does in terms of framing who's going to be. In the past, it's been framed around who is most shovel ready. So the work that you guys are doing in planning and being in a position to execute against a request will be measured as to whether or not you get more. Because there's a lot of people with great need, but they aren't able to how they would execute if they got the money. So you are actually in a superior spot because you have a pretty strong infrastructure.
Adding, the key word for this session is going to be prioritization. I mean, everyone asks, they see all the money coming into Springfield. How is it prioritized and who is it being prioritized by? Obviously, members of leadership are listened to a little bit more. Of these roughly $7 billion in ARPA funding the state's receiving, about $2 billion of that was allocated. The trick is going to be that there are federal guidelines around the federal money that's coming in from ARPA in infrastructure. So we're also going to be really thoughtful and creative as we understand what the budget process is going to look like for this year, what their intentions are with those dollars, and what we might be able to do with them within the federal constraints.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Member Graham?
Thank you for coming, and I want you to know that the city of Peoria is ready to execute. Are we not, Mr. Manager?
We're ready.
Ready. We're ready to roll. I note that the IML has its legislative agenda as well, and it does dovetail in many areas with ours, I suspect. And I would like to know what thoughts are as to the possibility of a restoration of the public duty doctrine as it relates to protecting our police officers and law enforcement personnel, taxpayers from all kinds of litigation that would be deleterious to the treasury of the city of Peoria.
I think the conversations around criminal justice and making sure that we protect our men and women in uniform who serve and protect us, and striking that balance between those two extremes is the challenge of this legislature and like none other. I think everyone concedes that we need to do everything we should do and that it's possible to be done to protect our municipalities who pay for and hope to protect the people who serve. The challenge always is they will use the issues of one bad apple in one isolated situation and try to paint everybody the same way. And on the other side of that same conversation, people saying that there should not be resources allotted to police because to the communities that if they had better social service supports. So that balance is going to be there, that conversation is going to be there, but our history has always stood strong with our law enforcement community, and I don't think that they're going to deviate much. But I think it'll be probably a hybrid of what we used to do, but I think they get that a lawsuit could break a town.
Right.
And we have to find a better way to address these issues, and I don't think they're going to leave that issue undealt with.
Yes, because I note that that is one of the goals of our Illinois Municipal League, which certainly we have important stake in as well. So thank you very much. Appreciate your input tonight.
Thank you. Seeing no more questions or comments, we just want to thank you for driving to Peoria and look forward to setting up some additional meetings and working closely with you. Thank you, gentlemen. We need a motion to approve this item. Moved by Councilmember Graves, seconded by Councilmember Jackson. Any other comments, questions? Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Sear?
Aye.
Councilmember Valpula?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
22-11 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Community Development with a request to approve the award of Housing and Urban Development Community Development Block Grant and Community Development Block Grant COVID-19 funds to Phoenix Community Development Services in the total amount of $680,000.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I ask Director Doolin to come up to the microphone, I thought I would just kind of frame this issue in the next item. If you recall, back in our budget, we talked about the fact that we received additional coronavirus relief funds through the Community Development Block Grant Program. These were specific program dollars that we used. A portion of those in 2020 we gave to businesses and small businesses, and we've granted those dollars out that way. It had to be directly related to COVID services. We had money that was remaining, and we had two projects that we presented in the budget that tonight we're asking you to approve. And the first is with Phoenix Development Services and their program, and then the second is with the Peoria Park District. And if I could ask Director Doolin to come up and explain some of the restrictions that we have on these dollars and also why we made the recommendations that we did about these two specific projects.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Manager. As the city manager said, when the pandemic started, the city of Peoria as an entitlement community with HUD got an allocation of funds specifically to be used to combat the spread of COVID, which is what they termed in kind of recovery efforts as well. It specifically has to be used in relation to COVID, which is different than our traditional CDBG funds, which have different requirements set forth for those. Part of the reason the two proposals tonight are coming, A, they fit into the allowable expenses by the HUD, and B, the timing of them as well, as these funds do have an expiration date. That is a while. I think it's at the mid-2023, but both of these projects can be completed by then. Workforce, that's your first project in front of you from Phoenix Community Development Services, is an eligible expense of COVID-related money because it responds to job loss that was created during the pandemic. I think that the important thing for this project, and then I'll probably ask Chris Call with Phoenix Community Development Services to talk about it a little further. Phoenix is a fantastic partner in the city of Peoria. They're one of the agencies we often rely on when we have housing issues for some of our most unfortunate residents of Peoria. But this is a really, I think, important project for them to bring forward because it's the next piece in not only providing affordable housing for residents, but also providing job training. So hopefully they can, continue to go forward with their development as well. So with that, I'd like to, Mayor, if you don't mind, ask Chris Call to come to and talk a little bit about the details of the project and what they'll be doing.
Sure, absolutely.
Dr. Doolin, and thank you, Mayor Ali and City Council. This project has been something that we've had actually envisioned for quite a while. That started actually back when the CEO Council kind of started their efforts on workforce development needs across the community. The COVID pandemic certainly presented even additional challenges for the homeless population that we serve, including the people already living in our housing programs as well as those unsheltered. Prior to COVID, we already had a 75% unemployment rate among that group. Once COVID came, we saw more than a 90% unemployment rate among that population. And obviously, a living wage is really critical to maintaining housing long-term and ending homelessness. So this project, some of it is where the building is situated, is that it is collectively kind of in the middle of several of our supportive housing projects, as well as the two largest shelters downtown to be able to serve the homeless population. And the idea is to create both a social enterprise, so the funds will be built out a restaurant and start kind of a cafe on the ground floor where we can employ our consumers ourselves, teach them a trade in the food industry, helping them get their certification, and then move them into private employment in the community and to keep turning that population. For our population, a substantial number of them have mental illness or developmental disability. So the model also really calls for a supported employment approach in which it's a lot more intensive, including following them into private employment out on the market. That's what makes this model a little bit different than traditional. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Call. And I know that we're going to ask you to come back sometime in February during one of our regular meetings to talk about homelessness, and that was a request by you, Councilwoman Jensen. The reason we couldn't do it with the 25th, we have another longer presentation 2 weeks from now, so we'll bring her back. Thank you, Ms. Call.
Any other questions?
No other questions.
Like that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're at item 22011. Can I get a motion? Moved by Council Member Jensen, seconded by Council Member, was that Allen? Allen, any other discussion? Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Sear?
Aye.
Councilmember Valpula?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
22-12 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Community Development with a request to approve the allocation of Community Development Block Grant COVID-19 funds for the rehabilitation of Treewind Park in the amount of $600,000.
Director Doolin, want to add?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just want to add on to what I said with the last item. This is the remainder of our CDBG COVID dollars. One of the eligible expenses is creating and expanding and improving outdoor space to really encourage people to spend more time outdoors, get healthy, be able to be around people in a little safer environment than inside during a pandemic. So we had a really good discussion with the Park District about what projects they had that would fall in line with that. We believe this is an excellent project to really create some better green space in 61605. With that, if you don't mind, Mayor, I'd like to ask the Park District Director, Emily Cahill, to come up and talk a little bit more about the project.
Sure.
Sure.
Hi, Director Cahill.
Hi, Mayor, how are you? Hi, Councilman Persons. Thank you so much for your time tonight. I know this is, I don't want to take too much of your time, but I certainly want to thank you very much for your consideration of this project. The commitment of putting $600,000 into Treewind Park is an opportunity that we so appreciate, that opportunity to collaborate with you around our shared goals when it comes to providing support to all citizens in our community. I want to thank Trustee Alex Sierra and President Robert Johnson for being here tonight in support of this, as well as our Superintendent of Planning, Design, and Construction, who, along with her team, Becky Frederickson, they put together this plan. As you can see, we are really focusing in on those key targets that are a part of this grant opportunity. So looking at a new playground, moving that basketball court. Every person I think that I have talked to about Treewind Park has a story. Alex being forced to chase the basketball down the hill. I'm not sure why that was the original strategy for that basketball court, but we look forward to putting it on a flatter part of the park so little kids everywhere don't have to chase the ball for their older siblings anymore. So it is a community service that you're doing for lots of folks. People use that park in lots of different ways, and so to be able to bring a shelter to that park, be able to really support and encourage quality social activity in that space is something that, again, we appreciate your willingness to collaborate with us in order to do that. This is a key thing that together we can make real difference when it comes to vitality in parts of our city, and we appreciate the opportunity. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions from the council? Well, thank you for that additional information, Director Cahill and President Johnson, Trustee Sierra, for showing up tonight. Appreciate your leadership. Can I get a motion on this item? Councilwoman Jackson moves, seconded by Councilwoman Jensen. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Sear.
Aye.
Councilmember Valpula.
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
22-13 is a communication with a request to concur with the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class R4 single-family residential district for a short-term rental for the property located at 1106 North Parkside Drive, Peoria, Illinois.
Councilmember Graham?
Thank you, Mayor. There's overwhelming opposition to this application from both the West Bluff Council as well as the Uplands Residential Association, as well as the vast majority of the neighbors who would be close by this particular property, 1106 North Parkside Drive. The reasons for the opposition should not require a lot of imagination if you're familiar with District 2, and if you're familiar with this particular section of District 2 where we have parking issues that dominate that particular area, and the sheer number of guests that are being allowed with the parking issues militate against this making any sense at all for the neighborhood, putting in a mini hotel with the density we have in the Parkside Drive area and in the Uplands. I would move to deny it.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Jensen. Any other discussion? Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be voting against the motion. I think it is incumbent upon a body like ours, a bunch of intelligent people, to set up rules that people can see in the sunshine. And if they follow the rules, they get to go forward. This particular issue is not like that. To me, we approve or deny because I know that person, or because this, or because of that. You know, we're very arbitrary, and law and legislatures should not be arbitrary. If the objectors to short-term rentals would bring forward an ordinance that everyone could live with and that is transparent, and that people who make the investment can understand that as long as they follow the rules, they're going to be okay, then I think we would be doing something responsible. What we're doing with all of these, I feel, is irresponsible. We're capricious, we're arbitrary, Nobody knows how it's going to come out. So, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Euler.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I'll also be voting against the motion to deny. I have not had the outpouring of opposition to this that was outlined in the motion. The only opposition I've seen has been the same opposition to every one of the short-term rental applications, and the sense of uniformity and the essence of the short-term rental program, planning and zoning has passed an approval on this, and I see no actual basis to deny. Thank you.
Welcome. Councilmember Graham.
My job is not to rubber stamp the recommendation of any commission. My job is to respond to the neighbors who have invested millions and millions of dollars in their homes, and they're opposed to increasing commercial encroachments into this neighborhood with the density issues. That's why we had the intensity of opposition to this particular property. Now, some of you would like every one of these short-term rentals to be approved willy-nilly. It's not going to happen in District 2. I'm going to look at each one on its own merits and the reaction and the response of the neighbors. That is my responsibility. In the past, where we've seen some support or no coherent opposition, or some of the density issues, parking issues, et cetera, that we have here, I have moved to approve, and you know it. So it would also be arbitrary and capricious to rubber stamp everything. Now, I'm doing what the people in my district want me to do as it relates to this particular address. The people who own this address, if they're going to live there, have the ability to do this without a special use permit, because this council has allowed that. Once again, my motion is to deny.
Councilmember Euler.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Do we have anyone here that would like to speak to a denial on this? Because I haven't seen the opposition that I keep hearing about.
See that. Yeah, you're welcome. Councilmember Jensen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Part of our role here is to listen to those that reside in the neighborhoods where these are being proposed. That is what our role is. And, I'm concerned that this particular council is not listening to the residents of the neighborhood where this is being proposed. In the 27 years that I have lived here, I don't think there has been a council that has been so tone deaf, not listening to the neighbors. We have worked so hard in the last 30 years to strengthen our older neighborhoods. They are a huge asset to this city. But if we go down this path of saturating neighborhoods like the Uplands with these short-term rentals, you're not going to have people like my husband and I, or City Manager Urick and his wife, or Ann Bartolo and her husband, who wrote one of the letters in opposition, or John Hinchy and his wife. All of us moved into these neighborhoods 25 to 30 years ago as young couples, made investments, and then decided to stay, raised our families. Now our kids are grown up, and we're staying there. Those are the people that you want to attract to these neighborhoods, not people that live out of town, that are renting them out for commercial purposes, that are bringing in more traffic, more people. The Uplands, as pointed out, one of those letters is now 40% rental. You're going to lose the people that we want to attract to these older neighborhoods to make our city strong and to keep it stronger. I believe we've already approved 3 or 4 in the Uplands. The Uplands is not a big neighborhood. And another one, especially one that I think there's at least 10 letters in our packet in opposition to this particular application, all raising different points, including traffic, the fact that this one has a pool and it may attract a lot of people, parties and that kind of thing. The people live in Texas. They're not going to be there, although they say they may be there some of the time. They don't need then the permit for that. I just hope that this council listens to the neighbors because they are an important part of our city, and we need these neighborhoods to be strong and to keep people like these neighbors who are concerned about them in our older neighborhoods. So I will be voting against, and I hope a majority of the council will as well.
Welcome. You know, I think that we have to be good listeners as well. I also think that we have to be consistent. If we create a policy with standards and limitations, such as the 3% or 10, I think it's 10 special use short-term rentals within a neighborhood area. There's certain criteria that we've established, and a swimming pool is not one of those, whether feature such as a swimming pool. But I just think that we have to be consistent. We've set up a policy so that we don't saturate. And I don't know that this particular request exceeds those standards or requirements. Legal, can you answer that question, or is that question for someone else?
I believe I would concur with the commission that they do appear to meet the criteria that we have set in place with the provisions that the commission set forth.
Thank you. The motion is to deny. I don't see any other discussion, so I would ask that you cast your ballot. Councilmember Sear?
Nay.
Councilmember Velpula?
Nay.
Motion fails with 3 ayes, 8, excuse me, 3 ayes, the rest nays. Councilmember Grant?
Yes, I wanted to speak before the vote was taken. But you know what? I think we'll just leave it to the voters, because in about a year, people will be able to ask for ballots if there's a primary election for early voting, because you folks aren't listening.
Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to approve the item.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Euler. Is there any other discussion? Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Sear?
Aye.
Councilmember Velpula?
Aye.
Motion passes with 3 nays, Graham, Jackson, and Jensen. Madam Clerk?
We are at unfinished business. 21-391 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Community Development with a request for a substitute motion to defer until the January 25th, 2022 City Council meeting an ordinance to disconnect certain real estate commonly known as parcel ID number 13-23-326-005 vacant land within the Peoria owned by Lynette and Stephen Demanis from the city of Peoria. And there is a motion on the floor previously to deny an ordinance. So this is a request for a substitute motion to defer for 2 weeks.
Do you want to give us an update on this, Mr. Manager?
Yes, we've just asked for a 2-week deferral, so we've had some time to sit down with the Demanis family and with their attorney to talk through this. The Corporation Council had an opportunity to meet with their attorney today, but we'd like to circle back with them as well, and so this just is a request for 2 more weeks.
Councilmember Euler?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I make a substitute motion to the January 25th, 2022 meeting.
Seconded by Councilmember Ruckriegel. Any other discussion? Councilmember Jackson?
I'm sorry, I just didn't hear that motion. There was some background noise.
Can you state that again?
Substitute motion to defer to the January 25th, 2022 meeting.
Gotta remember that 2022. No other discussion. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Sear?
Aye.
Councilmember Valpula?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We are at new business.
We're under new business. I first want to acknowledge on Monday, January 17th, we will celebrate the Martin Luther King annual holiday. It is also a city holiday, and city offices will be closed that day. There will be various events around the city, beginning Saturday with the Heritage Ensemble. They will have a virtual concert that's open and free to the public. Also, on Monday, there's a luncheon at the Civic Center held by the PECC. And Mr. Manager, public employees?
For community concern.
Community concern, yes, thank you. They give this great luncheon every year. It remains an in-person event. For those that are registered, there is a virtual option. Alma Brown is the person that can provide the virtual link for those that choose to go, choose to participate virtually. Also, the annual Freedom March that's typically held beginning at Bradley University and sponsored by many other organizations has been postponed to 2023. The march and the commemorative service will not be held this year, but will be held the following year. So, any other new business? Councilmember Graham.
Thank you. I certainly would like to thank our police superintendent and his command staff for their very complete exposition of an anti-violence strategy that was promulgated at St. Mark's School's Gymnasium on the 30th of December. And I want to thank also George Bean and his staff for making it happen, as well as the city clerk, Stephanie Tarr, Monsignor Brownsey of St. Mark's Church, and Principal Noreen Dillon. We had a great turnout, and we had the opportunity to actually listen to our citizens who have some concerns about what's been going on in our community. And the chief had an opportunity to provide a PowerPoint presentation concerning the strategy going forward. So kudos to those people who made this happen. It wasn't easy. That was the day before New Year's Eve, December 30th, but it was needed and necessary, and we had a good turnout. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilman Graham, for pulling that together and hosting and leading that that community session. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Something that I would like us to be thinking about. I know that we're going to be going into redistricting here soon, and that's going to take up some time. But one thing for the new year that I think our council needs to consider is our strategy around marijuana dispensaries. I think that we're going to start seeing a forecast of more of these coming to our city. And I would like us to be reactionary instead of being being proactive instead of being reactionary when it comes to these. Thinking about what is our strategy. Do we want to have so many in a district, whether that's a percentage or a certain number? But these are things that we're going to need to start thinking about as these start coming towards us. And I don't want to find us in a situation that we are currently with the short-term rental conversation. So let's just kind of start thinking about that. City manager, maybe if you could kind of see what some other municipalities are doing. Do they have certain strategies when it comes to the dispensaries, how many they're allowing in maybe certain wards or districts or whatever they use in their cities? But again, I just want us to get in front of this because I don't want this to be a topic of controversy when these start coming before us. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's something that we could potentially even have a policy session to discuss. Right now, we've got so many policy sessions coming up with redistricting that we may have to move that a little bit, but thank you for that. Councilmember Jensen?
I just have a follow-up question on Councilman Allen's proposal. I think we do already have some policy and requirements in place. We had policy sessions before you were on the council about this, and we set, consistent with the state law, limits where they could be, how many there could be. So maybe if you could provide I don't know if you can answer that right now or provide us with a refresher, but there are some limitations already set up as to the amount, the numbers, and how close they can be to schools and churches. And I think we even set a limit per district.
If I recall, we did not set a limit per district because at the time we had a lengthy policy session and then we did a whole host of public meetings throughout the city. And the final ordinance that we adopted, there was a hefty debate about not putting a limit on them at the time because we knew that they would be limited per state police district as the state was rolling those out. And the thought was that we would reevaluate those as those licenses continued to roll out with the state. If you've seen the news, you know that there's quite a bit of litigation about the licenses that have been rolled out within the last year to the dispensaries, if they have properly gone to equity applicants or not. But we would be happy to update that information, to bring it back and do another policy session to remind everybody where we came from medical cannabis to recreational cannabis, and then where we think that we may go. And we're very fortunate to have one of the main drafters of the bill right here in Peoria. So we've always been able to get as much information as we needed for everyone on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Over 25 years ago, the council imposed rental registration, which whose purpose was it recognized the fact that we had a lot of housing in Peoria that was substandard or that needed to be improved, or however you want to look at it. And so this was part of a strategy to address that, to register all the landlords, charge them a fee at first to bring everybody in and give them classes, et cetera, et cetera. It's been going on now, as I say, for over 25 years. And, Mr. Manager, I wonder if a month from now or on February 8th, we could see a report on how well this has worked. I have my prejudices, but I don't have facts, and you do. So if we could get a report, hopefully succinct, about what the outcome on housing in Peoria has been of rental registration, I think the council would appreciate it, and I can say that I would appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Any other new business? Councilmember Grab?
Yes, Councilor Kelly, could you clarify, please, what you mean by what the outcome is, whether we have good adherence to registering, or what it is you're trying to have the manager prepare a report on.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. I would like a report. This policies were undertaken because of what was perceived, I think correctly, as some real housing problems in Peoria, in some of the rental market in Peoria. We have put a lot of time and effort. There have been a lot of fees paid, et cetera, over all these years. Has this done us any good? That's my question. Is this a good policy? We need to look at this. This is a big deal. And I don't know that I've ever seen a report on to say, okay, since we did this, by our best estimation, this is what's happened to housing in Peoria. It's improved, or it's done this, or it's done that, or it's not improved, or whatever. That's what I'm after, not how many registrants or not how many. We've got a pretty big program. It affects a very large market. Is it doing any good or not? That's what I'm
Clear
after.
on the request, Mr. Urick?
I think that we can take the direction that Councilman Kelly had, and we can put some information together and share that with council. I think it would be helpful, I think, for council to see what the rental registration proceeds go towards. It supports the operations of the Code Enforcement Division of the Community Development Department. So we could certainly talk about all of that, share that back with council.
Okay. All right, thank you. Oh, go right ahead. Oh, there we go. Okay, there we go.
My main objective is to see how it's done with housing, not with our budget. I want to know how it's done with rental housing in Peoria. That's what it was set up for, not to supplement our budget. I don't care if you have that in there, but that's not really my interest.
And I think you'll find that it was done not as a revenue raiser, but to know where the rentals were and to have some quality in our rental market so we don't have the kind of nonsense that occurred in Chicago a few days ago. Some of the violations of codes, simple codes that have left people dead, including in Peoria. I was here when we implemented the rental registration and inspection program for a good reason, and I never voted for it to be a moneymaker, because if I did, I would be very deeply disappointed, wouldn't I, manager? It doesn't bring in much of anything, but it does give some regulation. I know this is probably falling on deaf ears, to housing that exists in our neighborhoods that is substandard, that is in some cases out of control. You have some very good rental properties, you have some very bad ones. It's a business, we wanted to get a handle on it. So I can't wait to see that report. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilmember Jensen?
Thank you. I just want to point out, it's not just the rental registration program. It's a two-component program. It's rental registration and rental inspections. And they were adopted together. It wasn't a policy, it was an ordinance. And I was here at the time, did the ordinance, and was part of the whole team that implemented it. So if you could give some of the history of that, it was set up to ensure that we improved the non-owner occupied properties, because at the time that's where the bulk, we had all this data that showed that's where the bulk of our complaints were coming from, and where we were having declining and problems in the neighborhoods were at non-owner occupied properties. So I just wanted to put that in too. So I think you can't just look at rental registration, although I know we don't do the rental inspection program the way that it was set up initially due to budget constraints. I think they stopped doing it in 2008, and now we kind of do just the safety checklist. But I think that's all part of the whole program and should be included in a report.
Should
Thank
be a good
you.
review. Thank you. Any other new business? Madam Clerk?
We are at citizens' opportunity to address the City Council and Town Board, and I have received 2 comments.
Okay, please proceed.
Hello, my name is Alex Shelton, and I was going to drop my car off at CarX on 4811 North University Street in Peoria last Monday, the 3rd of January. As I turned from Knoxville Avenue 40 onto Pioneer Parkway, I could already tell the roads had not been pre-treated with anything. Then as we turned onto University Street, I was sliding all over the road. I nearly hit the car in front of me and nearly ran into a curb. I think that we need to have a change in the leadership of the Public Works Department. If this happens again, someone could get hurt or even possibly die. Please do something. Sincerely, Alex Shelton. The second comment is from Chad Zeke. After the first snow event in the first week of January, the city was left with a thick layer of packed snow on the roads that later turned to ice. It's with high hopes the street department has a better plan for the upcoming snow event. As a restaurant owner, we have faced 2 years of unprecedented obstacles in business. The added obstacle of impassable roads due to poor planning of the street department is not acceptable. Thank you for your time. Chad Zeke, owner of the Hungry Moose on 3000 North Sterling Avenue. And that concludes the comments that I have received in my office.
Okay, did you receive cards from anyone in the audience?
No, we have not.
Did not. So, you can come to the microphone. Give us your name, please.
Hello everyone, my name is Nasir, Nasir Shikmam. It's been a year and a half ever since I've joined the community in Peoria. Thanks to Stephanie before moving in, I actually gave you a call. I don't know if you remember having some email conversations between us. Anyways, my problem over here is again the same with the sleet and snow that happened. The first snow that we saw was between Saturday and Sunday, New Year's, January 1st and January 2nd. We had a precipitation about 0.8. Just so that you guys know, I'm a civil engineer working on state projects in town, so I go with my numbers. My problem is that when I called the Public Works, I complained on 4th of January, 5th of January, 6th of January, and 7th of January. When I asked on 7th of January, the dispatcher told me that there's no reports reported previously. I have call records from my service provider that will prove that I made calls to the Public Works office. Finally, on my request, she sent me an email, which I have a copy of, that states my service request number. This happened on 7th, and on 8th, there was a sleet that ended up with a 0.4 precipitation within the city. And that actually was the worst one for me because I ended up damaging my car right when I was pulling up from from War Memorial into my neighborhood, which comes from District 4, which is Sherwood Forest. It's right across Best Buy, if anyone knows about that. And it damaged my car. Now, the damage doesn't really matter to me. I'll get repaired and all those things. But if something was to happen, who am I supposed to go for any of these complaints if the city, which I pay taxes to, is not taking care of my request? On multiple requests, phone calls, no one's answering it, no one's even taking it into consideration. They just answer the call and say, okay, we'll send someone, the other person to put some snow or some salt or something. But at the end of the day, there wasn't any request that was even taken into consideration. There were no reports of it. So what are my taxes being taken care of for? The second thing, just like fire and police department in Peoria, the resident population is also going down. And I think one of those reasons between the past 2 years is this service that we are getting from the city. As per the census of 2019, April 1st, the population of Peoria was 113,532 people, which decreased by 0.01% in 2020, which was 113,150 people. As per the current population, we had 108,353 people, which went down by 4.24% of population. And I think if this persists, I'll be one of the persons who's gonna walk out of Peoria and probably go to some other neighborhood because of the lack of service that I'm getting from the city. Now, apart from that, on 6th January, due to the excessive snow that was around Peoria, not to bitch about it, which I'm doing, sorry. I was pulling into a restaurant on Knoxville called Masala Cafe. It's an Indian restaurant. Across it is the West Republic Street, where an 80-year-old guy was trying to walk on the sidewalk, which was covered with snow, and he tripped. And I pulled my car, I went down and picked him up, helped him reach his destination. But then again, even the sidewalks are terribly, first of all, it was damaged, so it wasn't at the same level. Sidewalk needs to be reworked on, and then there was excessive snow. So what can an old guy, an African-American, 80-year-old guy, do when he trips? I asked him if he wants to complain to the city, and he said, no one's gonna take care of those things. This is coming from a guy who was born and raised over here around Peoria, and I don't know who am I supposed to complain about all these things that I'm seeing within the past 2 years.
Well, thank you for your feedback. The city manager is going to meet with you afterwards, if you can just stick around and talk to you and take your complaint. So the way that we handle the citizen comments is that you can make your comment. We don't give you a lot of feedback, but he is going to talk to you directly. I hope you decide to stay in Peoria. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Madam Clerk?
We do not have an executive session, so we would be at adjournment.
Okay, we plan to have one next time on the 25th, please. And can I get a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilmember Ruckriegel, seconded by Councilmember Allen. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Sear?
Aye.
Councilmember Velpula?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. We are adjourned.